All right, we'll talk about splitting hives. That's our demonstration today, so we'll talk about that one as we go. And if I don't answer this question, whoever's written the first one, if I don't answer it in my talk later, let me know. To provide water. Is it essential to provide water for the bees, or will they find their own source? If you have a local source of water in your area, like a little creek or something like that, then that's where they will go. They'll even find a swimming pool, unfortunately, and a lot of them do drown in swimming pools. But I have a water source in my yard for my bees, and to be honest, I've never seen a bee use it. The mosquitoes love it. Have to get the hose in there every so often and like really give it a good flushing out to get rid of the mosquito larvae. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's nice to have a water source of something in your yard, especially not just for bees, for birds as well. And
it's a requirement, I think, by DPI.
Is it really?
It's written in one of their guidelines.
Okay, there you go. So
actually, in South Australia, it's compulsory if you're migrating to take water with you, even if you're putting your hives near a creek, or you've still got to have your own. But I don't think it's compulsory here in New South Wales.
Well, it's
come and sit here, grab a chair and sit here next to me and help me. Sorry, what did you say, Ian? It's compulsory.
In South Australia, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But I also heard that bees like to get water away from their hive because it's for hygiene. You know.
So if you're putting water in your yard, you might be putting it in your yard for somebody else's bees. Yeah, but if you do put a water source in your yard, you've got to make sure that it's not, the bees have got some way of being able to climb out of the water. So something floating on the surface, or some rocks, or something that they can land on and drink. That's the ideal.
And the hive feeder, like the bottles, that's...
If you're putting your bottle in the front of your hive, yeah, I tried that last year, and I don't know whether it worked or not.
They like to go and get the water elsewhere.
Yeah, I think they do.
Especially chlorinated swimming pools.
Yeah. I've got to put my...
ones. The saltwater pools attract them more than any of them.
Yeah, I get lots of dead bees in mine. I've constantly cleaned the filter out with dead bees, but anyway.
And also like a patch of salt in it.
Yeah.
For a while we were going through a bottle a day.
Yeah.
That was sugar water.
Which is that sugar water when you're feeding them, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to mention about the swarm of bees if anybody wants it. I brought a swarm of bees down this morning. If there's a new member here that's registered and they would like to start, preferably somebody who hasn't got any bees, I'd like somebody to take them and start. If there's more than one person that wants them, there'll have to be a ballot. There will be a small charge. You'll have to speak to Ivan for the frames that are in the hive. They're brand new frames from the apiary. So if you speak to Ivan about the cost of the frames, but whoever gets them is welcome to them. But so I would like somebody that doesn't have any bees that's starting, but you need to be registered.
We've got somebody on the list already here.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we might do that.
It's only a small colony.
All right.
But remember, from little things, big things grow.
If you upset your bees during inspection, drop a frame on the hive. That's really...
Yep, all done.
All done that.
Yeah.
They get over it and they get aggro. Will they be aggro again when you next inspect the hive? After the accident, they won't let us anywhere near the hive area. Ah, okay. Bees do recognise people. They do.
Do they live long enough?
Do they live long enough to to pass that memory on to their offspring? I don't know. No, they shouldn't. So were they aggressive to start with? Who wrote the question? Were they aggressive to start with?
Right until somebody, I'm not naming anybody.
No. Look.
Dropped it, and then they just went berserk.
So the next time, how long after that did you inspect the hive
Oh,
again?
no, this was yesterday.
Oh, okay. So no.
Yeah.
All right.
They wouldn't.
They'll
let
get
us
over it.
anywhere near the area.
They'll get over it, okay? Basically, that's what'll happen. You'll be okay. Yeah. All right?
They'll forget, they'll die and forget and not pass it on.
Yeah. I don't know. I would.
For those that don't know, a bee has a 6-week lifespan. So, I don't know.
And a 3-day memory.
I don't know that they have time to build up a memory.
Yeah, they do have a 3-day memory. Yeah. Because if you lock them in a hive for 3 days, when they come out, they all have to reorientate themselves as to where they are. So they after 3 days, they forget where they are.
Wow, that's very true.
It only takes me 1 day.
It takes less than a day.
Do they show you their bruises?
My bees swarmed this week. How long before swarming do they start planning to swarm again, I would think? And could you prevent it from happening? So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today, about manipulating your brood to stop your bees from swarming. So we'll talk about that later. I saw a YouTube. Oh, I love YouTube. Saw a YouTube video where a very hot weather, they put the ideal above the hive mat, filled with leaves, etc. Oh, okay, to help stop the heat from coming in. That's a good idea, actually. Have you ever put something on the roof of your hive to help the...
We actually had an apiary officer here when I first started who used to wet a sugar bag, and he would roll it up and sit on one side of the hive, and as he worked it from the out, he'd just roll the bag out over the top, and that helped keep them cool.
Okay, yeah.
That's for inspection.
For inspection.
Yeah, that was going through,
yeah. So in summer, when your hive is sitting in the full sun all day, would you put a cover over the top of it to help them at all?
What was
So
that?
when the hive is sitting in the sun all day in summer,
Mm.
do you put anything over the top of your hives to help?
No.
No, you just let the bees do it.
Yeah.
The bees will beard out the front. If the hive gets too hot inside, they'll all come out the front and they'll hang on the side or the front, whichever, and they help cool it.
If you've got a full exit and entrance at the front of the hive, not a restricted one, the bees will actually they'll fan air into the hive, and they carry water. For those who used to have the old utes and everything, that had the water bag on the front of the ute, the cold air coming over, if it was a really hot day, it would evaporate the water, and that causes refrigeration. Bees will do the same thing.
And I think it was one of the DPI documents I saw that people were putting, you know, the insulated shiny stuff you get on the front of your windscreen?
Yeah,
Insulated?
yeah,
They put that over the top of the hive.
over the top of the hive.
It's insulated. It gets really hot.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got one hive in full sun, and I have one hive that gets a lot of shade, and I wouldn't say that one does better than the other in summer. So I think bees are pretty good at knowing how to regulate the temperature themselves.
Clem, you used to say too, put a mattress on each.
Oh yeah, you can.
You can ventilate the lid, but quite often they'll just fill it up with propolis.
Yes.
So
I've actually seen it where they stagger the boxes and leave a small gap at front and the back to allow the heat out.
Oh, yes.
But I've never bothered. As I say, in the summertime, the bees require a lot of water, and they will bring it back into the hive. They'll fan the air in over it. It takes heat to evaporate the water, and that's how they get rid of the heat out of the hive, by fanning air in. They'll fan it in one side, up through all the frames, across the top, down the other side and back out again. So you watch your bees in summer and you'll see some facing in, some facing out, and they'll be fanning their wings, and that's what they're doing. They're controlling the temperature inside the hive.
they will switch jobs on a really hot day. The ones that are bringing in nectar in the morning, and once it gets to on a really hot day, they'll just switch jobs. They'll just start bringing water in, and then you'll get the whole hive will just start bringing water in. So they'll work it out themselves. when they want to. You guys that are standing up at the back, if you want to come down the front, there's a few seats down here. There's one here, a couple down there. By all means, come down. Don't feel shy, please. Come and sit down. Is anyone outside want to come and sit down? There's a seat right up here too if anyone wants to sit on the naughty seat out here.
Everyone's going to run for that seat now, Penny, for sure.
By all means, take it back. Come and grab the seat and take it back somewhere if you want to. So there's another question here about how to insulate your hive on a hot day. Well, I think we've sort of covered that. What size hive is best to start with? Also, is there one that gets right when you're looking after bees? What would that be? One thing to get right when you're looking after bees.
A calm
Don't be afraid of your mistakes. That's what I would say. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah, don't panic either.
Don't panic.
Phone calls I get, something wrong with bees, you go and check them out, they're just being bees.
Yeah, yeah. I think everybody. You need to you need to learn how to do inspections and not be frightened of your bees. That's just practice. So once they do, yeah. Sit with your bees. Talk to them. Say hello.
But when you're opening your hive, do everything calmly.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, calm and gentle, and don't rush. Never ever open your beehive if you think, oh, I've just got an hour before I have to go out. Big mistake. They can sense that you're in a hurry. They can just tell. Allow yourself time. Make sure you do allow time to look at the bees. And what size is the best to start with? Well, when you get a beehive, so if you're collecting a swarm from somebody, someone will say, I've got a swarm, it's on 5 frames, it's in a Nuc Box. Lots of people say that the cardboard Nuc boxes aren't any good for keeping the bees in for very long. I've had bees in one of those for 3 months, a small swarm that I've collected, and it's been quite happy to stay there until it's built up, and then I've transferred it into a bigger box. So you can't give your bees too much space. You need to restrict them to the frames that they're working on. They don't like to have spare frames in the hive. They like to stay on the frames that they're working. So yes, you can't just automatically get a small swarm and just throw it in a big box, all right? You do need to sort of restrict them a bit. In summer it's not so bad, but in winter or coming into winter, that's one thing you need to make sure that you've not got too much space in your hive for the number of bees you have.
The division board helps that.
Yeah, division. You can get division boards. You can sort of divide it. But anyway. What is
So division board just locks off half the hive, or
yeah,
wherever you want to put it?
Yeah.
Does it lock off half the entrance as well?
You can lock your entrance yourself.
Yeah.
You just do the entrance, but you can just put a division board and you can say, oh, well, those 5 frames. I would leave frames in the other part of the box.
Yeah.
Just in case, but the division boards don't always completely stop the bees from going in. They can sometimes get underneath them. So if you don't leave frames in there, and the bees decide to go in there, you could open it up and have a burr comb everywhere. So yeah, you do need to make sure you leave the frames, but the division board will help keep the heat and the bees into one area.
So that'd be the most common method of looking after a small hive to begin with.
Maybe just in a Nuc box. I think it's probably more common to do that.
Transfer from the 5 to an 8.
Yeah, yeah. Once you've got those 5 frames all full, then you can transfer them into the 8 frames. What's the best species of bee to start with? So we have the
Pleasant ones.
The the honeybees are all Aphis mellifera. Is that right?
Yep.
We do have.
That's the ones we use.
That's the ones that we use.
There's a lot
so,
of
yeah.
native bees, but we use the Apis mellifera.
So if you're looking at doing beekeeping because of you're wanting the honeybees, you're wanting to have honey, wax, that sort of thing, then yeah, that's the type of the European honeybee is what we use. The native bees are a different type of beekeeping, and in New South Wales the amount of honey you get out of a native hive is very, very small. So if but they do take a little bit of honey off of them, just not a lot. My brood box has 9 frames with activity not filled on 8. When should you put a soup? So you've got a 10 frame box with 9 frames in it as a brood. If the bees aren't working all the frames in your brood box, it's not ready to put a super on. So you need to make sure that they're working all of the frames before you give them that extra space. So if you've got an I think that's what I'm reading, right? Yeah, so just make sure, and you can manipulate your hive. So we're going to talk about doing manipulation today. So that's what our topic is. So you will learn how to put some extra frames in there and get that hive going. Any tips for minimising time spent inspecting the hive?
Yes, do it quickly.
Slow and steady. No, you know what? When you do a full inspection on your hive, it is going to take a while. And yes, you're probably going to upset the bees a little bit. But that doesn't have to be every time you open the hive. You don't have to do a full inspection every time. DPI say how many times? Twice a year?
Twice a year.
Twice a year you have to do that proper full inspection. How many times would you do a full inspection, Clem?
Me? Well, I pretty much do it every time I go through the hive. It's not mandatory.
With respect.
Yeah.
With respect, that's not
It's not
answering the
mandatory.
That's not answering the question the way I want it answered.
No, well, the reason I do it is because I find it very interesting to go through the brood chamber and just see what the bees are doing.
Yeah, it is. It is fascinating.
It's not mandatory to do it. They mainly do it at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season. That's when they mainly do it. At the beginning, you're checking the queen to see how well she's laying and if she needs to be replaced. And at the end, you're checking to make sure that the queen is laying adequately to carry the bees through winter, because she will slow down over winter, depending too on where you are. Pretty much around here, they'll always get something. Excuse me. But you still need to know that you've got a queen that's going to carry the bees through winter. And if you don't think she's going to, and if you look at the frames, and if she's not laying in every cell, it's really patchy, salt and pepper it looks like. You've got dark cells and light cells where you've got the young larvae in it. If you've got a real scattering of brood in it, you can feel fairly sure she's starting to fail. And and don't do it too late before winter, otherwise you won't get a new queen.
Don't the bees recognise that and start
Sometimes.
cultivating a new queen?
Sometimes they will. They'll supersede the old queen. If you want to, you can actually take the old queen out, pinch her on the head and bury her. But well, that's what you do. There's no sentiment to beehive between the bees or the keeper. Where if you're going to replace a queen in a hive, you've got to get rid of the old queen, and you get rid of her by killing her and burying her. Don't leave her laying around, because she's got pheromones on her, and that'll attract bees from the hive. So by burying her, you get rid of all that.
So will the bees then make another queen, will they?
They'll raise another queen, but you wouldn't want to do it too late in the season because the bees will actually kick the drones out of the hive because they don't want the drones over winter either. So if you leave it too late and there's no drones, they can raise a new queen, but she won't mate. Well, she's got nothing to mate with. So you'd probably be looking at around about February, early
Being
March.
the latest, you'd do it, yeah.
That you would, if you were going to kill the queen, that's when you would do it.
Does the club ever do a buy on queens?
No, because they're so easy to get hold of now.
Yeah.
Just ring up, go to Hornsby Beekeepers. Does Ivan, do Hornsby Beekeepers, Ivan here? No?
Second week in October, he said.
Second week in October they have, we'll have, do they post them to you though?
Yes.
They will? Oh, there you go. So
you're going to put your name on the list?
go put your name on the list at Hornsby Beekeepers and they will post them out to you.
Does the post office have a problem with that?
No.
They'll all send them to you through the mail.
I've had problems with them. How they got a bit upset about it and came in a big plastic box or
A full, just a queen.
One queen.
Oh.
One queen.
Usually they just come in an envelope, an envelope that's got holes all through it.
Yeah.
Whenever if you are getting a queen, they recommend that you have one of those, a parcel pickup from the post office. You don't let the postman deliver it to your house and leave it in your letterbox.
Yeah, it's the last thing you want.
That's not what you want. You want to make sure you've got one of those pickup cards and you just, it goes to the post office box, to the post office, and then you will get notified when it's there and you just go and pick it up. That's the best way to do it.
Penny, how much guarantee is there that if you get one from Hornsby it'll be a placid queen?
There is no guarantee.
There is no guarantee. And to be quite honest, unless your queen is failing, I wouldn't bother requeening. If you've got a good strong hive and it's going all right, she might be 2 years old, or you might think she's 2 years old. Just leave her. Yeah. The hive will decide when they want to requeen. Flow hives that have been that have now cracked after irradiation. Yeah, apparently that's a problem with Steritech. They irradiate at a higher rate than Queensland, and the flow hive frames are cracking.
We found that with ours. We thought we'd be really clever, and when we bought it new, we irradiated it at Steritech.
Oh.
And when we had occasion to try and get honey out of the frames by soaking them, we were going to make mead out of it.
Yeah.
They were crystallised. It
was crystallised honey, yeah.
But what happened in the soaking is that the internal bits and pieces were so brittle, they started to break apart.
Have you contacted Flow Hive?
I was just about to say, the beauty of that was we got in touch with Flow Hive and they replaced the lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Free.
Why did you have them irradiated when they were new?
Oh, I'd been here and all you characters said about all these diseases. So I thought, I'm not going to have any American diseases in my hive.
But if it's brand new...
Yeah, but that'd be like going out and buying all the material from Ivan to make your frames up and having it irradiated. It's brand new. It's brand new.
I know that now.
See? Beginners make mistakes.
Right. But Flow Hive, I must give them another plug.
Yeah.
Flow Hive was very good with no urging or anything. They just offered and then they sent it all down, didn't they?
I went and saw a guy last week, who's got a few Flow Hives, and he did the same. One of his couple of his frames were cracked and broken, and he rang Flow Hive and they sent him a whole 6.
Yeah. Wow. They have to do the lower strength, don't they? They can do it, but
the radiation,
at a lower strength.
Apparently they'll leave it in and they might do a second run or something. They say I think you can irradiate them twice before they start to break down.
I thought it was up to 7 times.
But if you apparently you request to have it at minimum radiation.
At Steritech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that question, I'll comment. There's only one frame,
Yeah.
and it's only one irradiation. That's had.
Contact
Flow hive.
flow hive.
And we have experienced this in bee suits.
Yeah, your bee suits, the plastic zips go.
So what has Stereotech said about that? Why, it doesn't seem to make sense. If they're giving it a certain dose, and that's the dose they recommend, doesn't that seem to suggest this is what you need to make sure you're rid of AFB? So why don't they just always use the minimum dose? Is it not adequate enough, they feel?
I think they just put our stuff in with everything else that gets irradiated.
Okay, so it's not bee stuff, then?
I don't. It's not just bee stuff. They do a whole gamut of things. So yeah.
They won't know. If it's in the box, they won't know what's in it.
Yeah, unless you
You've got to specify.
yeah
They
specify.
probably wouldn't be able to cope with small quantities, though, would they?
No, because
They
I think all the bee stuff's such small quantities. I mean, I don't know. So, but anyway, if anyone goes over to Stereotech in the next few weeks and wants to ask the question, come back with the answer. That'd be great. All right. So in your brood box, in the lead, when the bees get all excited because it's spring and they get on a really good flow or something, they'll bring in so much honey and pollen, they tend to be a bit lazy. Instead of taking in the honey upstairs, they'll pack it in where the bees have hatched. So what happens is the frames start to look like this. So you've only got that small area for the queen to lay eggs in because the bees have put honey everywhere else, and or pollen. So they'll do the same with pollen. So you've got I should have a clicker. See that one? It's got a lot of pollen around the edge, only a little bit of honey in the corner. But the bees have actually started to put pollen where those little holes are in the. Can't quite see it there, but some of the.
Your first one,
This
third of the way across.
That's pollen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this one, some of these holes where the bees have hatched, they've actually started to put pollen in the middle of the brood. So what happens is the brood, the area where the queen can lay the eggs, becomes smaller and smaller. And so instead of spring and having lots of room and the brood getting bigger, it's actually starting to get smaller. So what we need to do is we start to, oh look here, here's a pollen one. Look at that. That's just full of pollen. You need to take some of these frames out of your brood box and make way for some new foundation, and gives the queen somewhere else to lay. So there's a good, so it's a good time to do a split on your hive. If you've got quite an active hive and you want to do a split, this is another way. These are all ways of stopping the hive from swarming, because when the brood box becomes honey bound or pollen bound, because there's less room, the hive will sometimes say, oh, let's swarm, let's get out of here, it's not enough room for us. So that's why we're opening up the brood box, we're going through, we're doing an inspection, we're making sure that queen has room to lay so that the hive doesn't decide to swarm. So it's all sort of a bit of swarm prevention, and also a good time to do a split if you've got a good strong hive that you want to do a split on. All right, so. And this is how you would set up your Nuc box if you were going to do a split. So you have a frame which is completely empty of anything. So it could be a drawn frame or it could just be a foundation frame. 2 frames of brood, which you would have capped brood, larvae, and also make sure you have eggs if you're expecting that split to produce their own queen. And then a frame of food for the bees, so some pollen and some honey. So that would be the ideal split. If you've purchased a queen and you're wanting to make another hive with a queen, you wouldn't have to have eggs on those frames. but you would need to have some nice young nurse bees on those frames as well, all right? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Done that?
Now, if you're actually purchasing a new queen, she will come in a cage. She goes into the hive in the cage.
Yeah.
No, don't take her out of the cage and try putting her in because she's a stranger, and you'll find the other bees will probably kill her.
Yeah.
So you introduce her in the cage. It's called an introduction cage. So she goes in the cage, and there's a little tube on the front that should be full of sugar candy, and they will clean that out and release her, and by that time they've pretty much got used to her pheromones and they'll accept her.
That was only 4 frames. Would you only put 4 in the box?
Oh, you
or
could
would
stick
put
another frame
one?
in there of any
honey?
Yeah. Brood.
Brood.
It's also suggested that you throw a lot of nurse bees in there, shape
Yeah.
a lot of frames.
Yeah.
The field bees will go back to their old hive and
Yeah.
the nurse bees will stay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So it's important to make some observations once you've manipulated your hive. So if you've taken a frame out that's got a lot of honey on it that might only have a little bit of brood, you put that frame upstairs in your super, so that the brood will hatch that's there, and they will join the rest of the hive. Once that's happened, you can extract that honey that's on that frame and replace the frame with new foundation if you want to, or if it's in good condition you can just use it as a super, as a honey frame. But observing your hive, after you've done a manipulation, you do need to observe your hive and make sure that everything that you've done has gone right, because quite often you can do something and you might have made a mistake somehow. So you need to know this chart here about when the brood's capped and when they're going to start hatching, just so that you've got that in your mind as to how that split or how that hive is going to cope with being manipulated. All right, Yelly?
Yeah, I've done that the other week, or pretty much so ago, moved some brood up and I missed some eggs. So I went back a week later to check on them. They'd drawn emergency cells up in the super.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Because you put some eggs up the top.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
Hard to see in the dark green, and with the mesh over your face, it can be a bit hard to see.
Yeah, so if that being the case, did you go back in to make sure that they were okay?
I keep going back in to make sure any clean cells off.
So that's a part of observing. So that was good, because Lee went back in to check what he'd done, and emergency queen cells, that hive could have started swarming. And
I've also heard that, and Clem might be able to confirm or deny it, that when that happens, that they'll sometimes coexist like 2 separate brood chambers.
Oh, wow.
They will, but if they raise a queen above a queen excluder, she can't get out to mate.
Well, that makes sense too, yeah.
So and you can have the case where the new young queen up the top, when they raise a lot of queen cells, the first one out, she'll start making, they call it a piping noise. And what she's doing is she's sending out a challenge to any other queens that are in the colony. And when they meet, they fight. And the strongest one will always win. So why I'm saying this is that if they raise another queen above the queen excluder, she can't get out to mate. If she challenges and they meet, they can fight through the queen excluder. If the one down below gets killed, then you've got an unmated queen up the top, and all you're going to end up with is drones.
Could you make a new hive then, or start another box?
Oh, if you want to take the frame out with the queen cells on it, you can use that to make a split and make a new colony. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
But she's got to be able to get out to mate. Otherwise, you've got a queen that's just going to produce drones. When the queen lays an egg, she fertilises the egg when she lays it, or as she lays it. If she doesn't fertilise it, then it becomes a drone. An unfertilised egg becomes a drone.
So we will go out to the apiary today and we'll have a look. We'll open up one of the hives and we'll do a split and I'll show you what frames you would do manipulating on as well. So this is just a bit of a practical, just a demonstration here, but we will go into the apiary. So, and the visitors are welcome to come down and have a look too. So we've got some suits you can use. So yeah, and observing the split. If you do a split too, you need to make sure you observe what's going on in there, because if you put eggs in there and you're expecting them to raise a queen, you need to make sure that you know when that queen is going to hatch, and make sure that they've actually have produced a queen, because there's no point making a split and going, oh well, I'll go back in 3 weeks' time and there should be a new queen there. If they haven't made a queen cell, there's not going to be a queen emerge from that split. So you do need to check. If you've done a split and you need to have those 3-day eggs for them to be able to produce a queen. If you wait to about the 10th day, you'll know that there's a queen there. But if you wait to the 17th, 18th day and there's no queen there, you've lost all of that time, and all the bees will start to, it just makes them struggle, okay? So that's a really good chart to learn that chart and know when the bees are, when the cells are capped, when they're going to emerge.
My problem with that is, what are you looking at? You're looking at the cap. Does it indicate?
Well, you know the difference between the capped cells, whether it's a queen, a worker, or a drone.
Sure.
So there's the 3 different types of.
Sure, but how do you know how far along they are?
Well, if you've done your split on day 3,
right?
So 7 days
You're
later.
Counting days then.
Yeah, you're going to count days. So 7 days later, you will know if you have a queen, because they'll have capped it and they'll have made a queen cell. So you probably can't tell on day 4 or 5, but definitely on day 10, you'll know that you've got a queen there. So it's only a week after you've done the split.
If you've got one with a queen cell on it, can you take that one and put it into another box?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And you can just, if you don't want to move that whole frame, you can just cut around take a reasonable area around the queen cell and just put the cell in the box with all the other frames that you want, and they will raise that as a queen. Especially if you put it's up the top that you put it up the top, don't you, if you do that?
Which,
if it's a queen cell that you're putting into a split.
Into a split.
Yeah.
Well, in the middle, just in the middle of the box.
But at the top.
You shouldn't have a. You shouldn't have a.
I haven't been able to spot my queen yet.
You haven't found your queen?
I'm not good enough yet.
That's all right. You don't have to see her. As long as you've got, small, little, tiny larvae in your hive, you know she's there.
Yeah.
And eggs. Look for eggs.
And eggs.
So is the capping different for a queen?
Yes, definitely.
So it's different for a drone, worker, and queen. So there's an actual visual.
There is.
Oh yeah.
So your visual on your. I'll go back and I'll show you the.
The queen cell looks like a peanut shell.
That's a queen cell. Where? This one, over in that corner. See, it looks like a peanut. It looks like a peanut hanging off of the.
It's a lot bigger.
Yeah. And then the cells around it that are capped are just worker cells, because they're just sort of flat but slightly domed. And then your drone cells, let me see if is everyone, you right? Yeah? I'll see if I can find a picture of a drone cell.
Yeah, they look a bit bigger, these ones down the bottom.
This one here, it sort of sticks out a little bit, but not a real lot. It just looks more domed over the top of the
Another good way to work out whether you've got a failing queen too is if you're going through a hive and you see a lot of cells where it's got a big dome on the top of the cell, that's because the queen is failing, she's laying unfertilised eggs. There's not enough room in a worker cell for a drone. So what they do is they extend the worker cell higher, and I always say it looks like a 22 bullet.
Yeah.
You've got the normal depth cell and then a big dome cap on the top of it. And that's when the queen's failing and all she's capable of laying is drones, unfertilised eggs, which become drones. So if you see that in there, you know your queen's well and truly on the way out.
So this picture's got nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but I love this picture. I reckon it's a really good description of the queen laying and and it gives you the days, like, you know, what to look for in their days. So on day 10, they're going to start capping and things like that. So, all right. So adding a super to our hive. So once we've manipulated our hive and we've got a really good strong hive going, other things that people wanted to know about was when do you put your super on the top. So, when can you add a super? So we know that we've got to wait for the brood to be full. They need to be working every frame. So when every frame you pull up from your brood box, there needs to be a good coverage of bees. You need to make sure that you've got plenty of brood in there that's going to hatch before you put that extra super on the top. Okay? All right. Can you think of any other reason why you wouldn't put a super on the top?
Well, you never really give the bees more space than they need, simply because it depends on the honey or the nectar flow. If it's only a very short nectar flow and they've got a lot more space than they need, quite often what you end up with is a lot of uncapped honey, which is no good to you. Or if you're after a straight line honey, you're better off if you've got them, you put a half depth on, or an ideal depth honey super on, which they're shallow. One is actually half, the other's just over half a normal. But that's only for a short flow, so that they can fill that up. But if you don't care and you're quite happy to have a mixture of whatever's around, which most of us do, you don't worry about it. But if you're after a straight line honey and it's a short flow, like pitostrums, you know the pitostrum trees at all?
Yep. No.
They've just finished flowering actually. You can walk outside and you can smell the flowers. It's really strong scent. There's some just over the road here and there's over here. They have a little white flower on them, very highly perfumed. But it's only very short. It only lasts a week or so and it's over. So if you've got a full depth box on, the nectar they get off that, they're not going to fill the whole lot. You end up with a frame that's got nectar everywhere in it, but nothing's capped. So you're better off with a shallower box. So they've got a chance of filling it and capping it, and you'll get straight line pitostrum honey. Yeah. So it's knowing your area, and you don't have to become a full-blown botanist, but if you know a little bit about it, it does help.
There's trees and there's grass and there's flowers, yeah. Sorry, Clem. I've got really no idea. I usually go by the fact that if I can walk up to a flower and give it a shake and you get some little bits of moisture come on your hand, you know that there's some nectar in there for the bees. And I've got a few trees around my area which I do that to quite often, and it's surprising what a difference that rain has made, that little bit of rain that we've had over the last few weeks. You know, we had those nice couple of days and then and then a couple of weeks later we had a bit more rain. It was great. Last year we didn't really get any of that, and the flowers will be out there, they'll be beautiful sometimes, but there's actually nothing in them, they're as dry as. So it's a little bit, you've got to kind of check if there's nectar out there. There's no point putting that super box on your hive when it's a drought and we haven't had any rain. So that's another thing to be mindful of, is that rain will make a big difference to whether there's going to be any flow on. At the moment, what they say, make hay while the sun shines, so make honey while the sun's, and then the rain's been around.
If you're fortunate enough to be in an area where the ironbarks are in blossom at the moment, they are yielding quite well.
Does ironbark crystallise very quickly? Because I took some honey off a few weeks ago off my hives, and it has crystallised.
Yeah, fairly quickly.
And really, really fine, very smooth crystal. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And mine was jasmine. A lot of jasmine around.
Jasmine.
It's a very sweet honey.
Yeah.
And it's actually started to go white.
Hey, did anyone bring a jar of honey today?
Beautiful gold colour.
Anyone bring a jar? I had 2 jars of honey in my car, and then I took the other car today. My 2 jars of honey are at home still. Okay, well maybe next field day we'll have a bit of a show and tell with honey. Come on, we should be able to get some jars of honey just to have a look at the difference of the areas. It's interesting to see what colour they are from different areas. Mine this couple of weeks ago when I took these frames off, it's dark. I've never had honey this dark so early in the season. Normally my first season of honey that I get, or the first extraction of honey, is quite light, and it tends to get a little bit darker as the season goes on. But this is actually quite...
You've got paper barks in your area?
Yeah.
That's fairly dark, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so... But as I say, it's crystallised already.
Yeah.
And I only took it off 2 weeks ago. So, it shouldn't have sugar in it. I don't feed my bees, so...
The Banksia honey, that candles.
Yeah.
Candy's
So
very
when we're talking about replacing our queens, this is what your queen will come in. A little package, a little box like that. And she has the queen, and she has...
That's an old-fashioned one.
Is it?
Yeah, oh yeah. They're all plastic now.
Oh, they still come like that? No, they still come like that.
Yeah. I haven't seen one for years.
I think they still come like that from Hornsby.
Oh,
Hornsby beekeepers.
Yeah.
So you got the queen in there, she is up the top there, and then she has 5 or 6 workers in there with her. And then this white bit here is the candy that her and the workers will eat and feed the queen, and they'll gradually eat their way out of the little cage.
If you get these, one of the things you want to check is that quite often they'll actually put a cork
in the other
where
end.
the sugar candy is.
Yeah.
No, even where the sugar candy, there'll be a cork back there. But if there's one where the sugar candy is, make sure you take the cork out.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, the bees can't chew the candy out to release the queen.
The other problem I've had with this particular one is that amount of candy there is so much that after a week the bees have sort of only gotten to that, and these ones haven't been eating from that end, and after a week she's still in the cage. So I have dug a little bit of candy out on this end just so that they can get to each other a bit quicker.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I think they just kind of pack too much candy in there. So just, watch that.
Depends on how stiff they make it too.
Yeah.
Or is that just in case the postage is a little bit longer?
Probably just in case they need to stay in there, yeah.
Slow release is better than too quick.
But it's a week's long, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just getting a bit... Usually they get them out within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Penny, remember too, if they're going to sit on your bench under a tea towel for 3 or 4 days because you haven't got time to put them in, you've got to give them little drops of water.
Yeah, that's another thing, yeah. You do need to make sure they... But then don't give them too much. I've done that. I've given them too much water and the sugars all started to melt and she's like this sticky, macky mess.
Bruce has sent out a thing this week, but that won't let just in the beginning of this time. Yeah, there's a lot, and a lot is from up wide. So I just want to make sure it's not all along up there.
Can you make sure this is all done up?
And I'm doing my
my dad's giving me my fat.
Any doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so just be careful, guys. That hive down there, the last one, is a little bit cranky. We noticed the last time we opened it up. So I'm actually going to put a suit on and a veil and everything because I don't want them to get me. Alright. Oh. Sorry. Bit of smoked. Alright, so we're just going to have a quick open of this top box and see what's happening. So they've not a bad little hive here. They're working these main 2 frames in the middle. There doesn't appear to be anything happening on these outer frames. So this shouldn't be too heavy. No, pretty light. No handle on that side. Okay, this box is really good. They're actually working all the way through except for this side frame. There doesn't appear to be any bees on this side frame here. So that's quite good. If this was my hive, I probably wouldn't have that box on the top because they haven't worked this frame on the edge yet.
What's that bug there?
A dead bug. It's a wax moth.
Okay.
Okay? So being nice and full, we've got some nice drawn comb here. We'll have a look. I don't want to mess the honey frames up too much because I want to open the brood box. So we'll just pull one frame out and have a look at it. But I won't go through all of them today. We did an extraction on all of these hives a couple of weeks ago when we had the beginners course here.
So how many extractions would you do a year?
We do about 4 because that's how many courses we have. But we don't, we tend to muck the bees around quite a bit, so we don't get a lot of honey here at the apiary. Because we're doing beginners courses, it sort of does mess them around a bit. Now they're capped up the top, but the rest of it's all just nectar, so that's going to go back in there for a little while.
Do you ever measure the water content of your honey using that little...
I do have one. No, I don't measure the water content of my honey. I don't extract any honey that hasn't been capped.
Yeah.
So they usually don't cap it until it's below 19%, so that's the ideal. And yeah. Yeah, they are quite calm, aren't they? Let's see if we can change that.
No. Do you want a hand with that?
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
I noticed
Okay.
going over to there?
Yep, on top of that.
Rotten pears that the bees were eating over there.
Sorry?
Rotten pears lying on the ground and the bees were eating it.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
And they looked like they got drunk. They were falling off them and fighting each other.
Because rotten fruit starts to ferment.
Yeah, that's what
So then it's not ideal to give them that.
Penny, is there any reason why that hive is sloping forward, like type of level?
The hives, unless you have a flow hive, they should always slope forward so that any moisture build up or any water that's in the hive will flow out the front door.
Or a grill on the bottom.
Yeah, I've got all my hives at home have the mesh bases, and so I just have them flat. I don't have them sloping forward. There's no point.
With a mesh base, they are able to keep it warm enough in
Yeah, because it has another tray underneath the mesh base.
Do you keep oil in the tray for the hive beetle, or what do you keep in the tray?
I don't. I open the tray every couple of days and I just squish the beetles that are in there.
Yeah.
So that's quite a nice active sort of brood. That's what I would like to see. If you were considering when you were going to put a super on the top for your honey, that's the sort of activity you would need to see in your brood to say that yes, it's time to put my super on.
And do you put a half or a full one?
I don't use any half boxes, so I just go a full. Yep. Now, for those of you who have not seen this before, I go through and I crack each of the joins here with the hive tool, just so that it makes it easier to pull each of the frames out. Like that. And then I do the other side as well. Just nice and slowly. Try not to squash the bees.
They're very gentle.
The bees are very gentle. Yeah.
You're gentle, they're gentle.
Yeah, you gotta. They are very good. They're nice little hive, this one.
I'd have a mass of bees above me by now.
Yep. Gently does it. And we'll take this second frame up. Nice and carefully. Rest the corner on top of the other frames. Put your hive tool down and then make sure there's no bees under there. Grab that corner and have a look for the queen. Reason I always look for the queen first is because I don't want to drop her out of the hive. So I just make sure that she's not on the frame at all before I go passing it around to you to have a look at.
Are all the queens, is she marked, Penny?
Most of the queens here are marked. We got some nice big buff drones here. Lots of capped brood. They have started to put a little bit of nectar in the holes where the brood has hatched. So that's sort of interesting to have a look at. There's a drone cell down in this bottom, a couple of drone cells in this bottom corner here. You can have a look at that. Oh, look at the bag of pollen that one's carrying. Look at it, it's huge.
Yeah.
On its leg. Okay.
And another one.
Very docile, isn't it?
Yeah, they're very good. Very nice.
Beautiful. Oops. Yep.
That's it.
That's amazing.
So there really is very little honey in this brood box, which is good, which means they've got plenty of room to lay, but it's not ideal for our demonstration today.
Oh
well. There we go. There she is.
Which one?
Don't point to her. Have a look. See if you can see her.
You can see it.
Okay, she's
You
marked.
can see her? Can you see the queen?
Go and point to her.
No, don't point.
She's marked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. That's a drone.
Other end, you're looking at the other end.
Oh, yeah, I see her.
Oh, yeah, I saw
Yeah?
her. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yep. Oh, she wants to get to the dark.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, but it still smells good.
Sorry, darling, didn't mean to disturb you.
The queen up close.
She's going to go for a walk again.
Where's she gone?
She is. So we'll put this one back in the hive because I don't want to lose the queen out of here. Did everyone see her? Anyone want to have another look? No?
You said she was about to lay?
No, she's moved on now.
okay.
She's moving around again now.
She gone?
Yeah, she's still here. She's just there. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah. As soon as you spot her, your eye just goes up.
She's interested in those few eggs, in those few cells around there, so she sort of keeps going around and around. All right. Dispersed between the brood, so this would probably be a good frame to take out of here. This one's doing a little waggle dance. She's like getting her attention to the other workers. She's getting excited and she's going to start doing her little... All right, I'm going to give this one a shake into the hive. So if you're wanting to examine your frame, especially for pests and diseases, you need to make sure there's no bees on the frame. Otherwise you can't really have a good look at it. So what we do is we hold the end bits like that and just give it a really good shake. They'll settle down. They will settle down. No, that's okay. They're all good. See, this particular frame hasn't got a good brood pattern on it. It's quite open in the middle. They've started to put nectar and pollen in the middle. So this would be one that I would consider taking out, putting it up the top, letting that brood hatch, and then working out what I was going to do with the frame. Which might be just cut it out and start again with new foundation. The only thing you don't want to do is you don't want to put frames up there that are looking a bit, you know, uneven or something like that, because then that starts to make the honey frames sort of uneven because they'll build to that pattern. For your eggs is to make sure you get the sunlight shining down inside the cells, and you should see a little tiny white egg.
When I go up and clean, get the brood nice clean wax. So if I move that frame up and I'll see if it's all brown and dirty, I'll let it fill up honey, I'll extract it, and then I'll just cut all the wax out and then start again with new foundation.
Can you see the little tiny white speck down the bottom?
Just a tiny, tiny little thing.
Yeah, yep. It's only very thin.
I double check all the time.
I thought I had. No, doing these things like I'm good. But wasn't yours a bit of a anyway, down the small. And it was like, pow, and I just went,
It's 2 weeks ago. Should it get stuck through the suit? Or?
Thanks,
Penny.
We've got to head off.
Okay, see ya.
Penny, what do you want me to do with your phone? Do you want me to just put it there?
Yep.
I took a video and a couple of photos.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that I had Ivan come out.
Was it all right, Nira?
Yeah, I felt like a bit of an idiot.
That's all right.
I thought my bees were small. Ivan said it was good. 2 weeks ago, but I haven't transferred them across to the flow hive though.
That's okay.
It's full, isn't it?
Well, that's full.
Brood? Yeah. It actually feels quite heavy, this frame. It feels a lot heavier than the other two that I've picked up. So
The side's nearly brood. There's not that much.
yeah, this one's the same, this side.
The morning of their course, that's right.
See?
Did you pick up that swan?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I've got it ready to be picked up. So it's an only
So you
I've
got
my
one.
hive.
The boys were like, oh, you could do this, and I could see you going. It's like,
I'm like, ah!
just put you. I know.
Just take a photo of
What she's trying to do.
Okay, so does anyone want to see a drone? We've seen drones? So, where's he gone? He's just done a runner.
So what do the drones do?
Here we go. In this area here. One there and one there. Oh, yeah.
It's really big.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
So in the winters then, is it different in terms of like the way how you maintain the hive? like compared to the summer?
Yeah. In winter you probably don't really need to touch it very much.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that winter can be from about the end of May right through until the last week of July, early August.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's only a couple of months really. Yeah.
Do they?
No. No. There's a lot of larvae. There's like this frame's absolutely packed, so there's nothing wrong with the queen.
No, just this frame.
Yeah, just that frame.
This stuff? Oh, are they? Okay.
You never stop learning.
And see that one, Charlie? Oh, I had little yellow
For a bit. Won't give it too much. There you go.
It smells beautiful.
See down here, we've got all lots of larvae. Larvae.
Can you see, Charlie? Little white things.
White and shiny.
And see that big? That's a drone there.
Yeah.
See that bee there, Charlie? That's a drone. Girls, they're all chilling.
Look at all the larvae in there. Can you see all the white shiny larvae? It's a bit hard when you there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
With this in there and the egg full.
Oh yeah, that's exactly. Oh yeah.
So if I was going to do a split on this hive, if I was thinking that maybe I want to split this one, this would be a frame that I would take out because it's got young larvae in it.
Yeah. Okay, so you wouldn't put like a second brood box on?
No, that's not going to help them to stop them from swarming. This is the bit for cleaning out the wax in the top of the frame. When you're replacing the wax, you can slide it down that bit of wood and it cleans out that groove. This is for undoing the butterfly clips if you've got butterfly, the wing nuts. So you can use that for... This bit cleans out the queen excluder, so you can run it down like that. This bit is really handy for if you've got flow hives. You can, because the flow hives don't have this area at the end where you can put the piece underneath it. So you need this one to lift them up. You got a hammer to bash back in the nails when the nails start to come out, and then you've got that nice. It's rough so that your frames don't slip off of there when you pull them up.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
When you take out each frame, you have to put it back into the same position?
You do. You do need to try and do that. A good way of remembering where they go is to put a line across your hive like that, and then you just line up all the lines when you put them back in. So if you can't remember...
I was thinking of numbering them.
Yeah.
Putting in new frames.
If you're putting in new frames, rub the lines off and start again.
On the outside, or in the middle.
If you're putting new frames in, you can just put them in you don't have to, if you're going to take the honey frame from the outside, you can replace that with a new one, but otherwise I would put them in the second one in.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to put them there, but sometimes it's a good idea to push another one a couple aside and put a new one in the middle so that you're pushing the old ones to the outside. I don't know why. This one's being a bit tough. Let's see what's happened.
I got stuck last week to get you through the sock. Yeah, and black socks. Black socks.
I think they've joined this one to the bottom.
Oh, that happened to me. That was all joined. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Probably have to take it out and clean it.
Yeah, they do put drone cells down the bottom. No, I don't know why.
There's wax on the side.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a hive beetle. This is the first one we've seen in this hive.
Yeah, I can see him just
Another
going
one
in.
there.
Oh yeah.
Kill it.
He's got a free hand.
Ollie, get it.
There is. Tiny little
There
ducks,
is,
they're very
yes,
fast.
yeah, they do. They're very tiny.
Poor little black beetle.
And a hive bee came down and landed on the bowl, under the lip of the bowl.
And what will that do? Oh, it lays eggs and messes up the hive.
Yeah, and it spoils all the
All the nectar. Look at all the nectar there.
Yeah, they've got nectar here. This is quite heavy, this frame, so they've got there's quite a bit in there. They're a nice colour bee, aren't they?
Aren't they? Yeah,
Yeah.
very pale. Sort of. Some of them are quite stripy.
Yeah. Like if this frame was capped like that all the way over, then I would take this frame out.
If you move out the front, they won't get you.
That's it, yep. I would take this frame out. If it was full of honey, take it out of the hive and put a new frame, new foundation in there. Gives them room to put more in. No, it's all right.
Actually do it on the box.
Right, you're all right.
Clean up the squash things,